It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. And whether you're listening on a podcast platform or if you're watching over on YouTube, go check out the description. We've got a Facebook link for everything custom designs. If you're listening late in the Steelers episode, I found out that Haley Wagner, our friend, is doing some customized St. Patrick's clothing, but she does all sorts of customized clothing. You get her hat, or not hats. Jeez, keep messing that up sometimes. But you can't get hats, but you can get shirts, hoodies. I know she does occasionally some like odds and ends stuff. Like at Christmas, she did like a Santa sack sort of deal, and she can do like an apron and stuff like that. But go check that out. We got a Facebook link down there. Hit her up for some customized clothing. This is the Around the 412 Penguin Show. The Penguins, as always, as they've done so many times this season, kind of feel like they're just still in limbo. They bring us pain. They bring us some joy by beating the Flyers 7-6. Where are we at right now with the Pittsburgh Penguins?
They bring us joy, and even when they do that, there's still pain because Brian Rust now out week to week. Man, I mean, like, the good news is about this is clearly the Penguins have the lineup depth to be able to withstand a Brian Rust injury. There's so many guys on the lineup that have been producing this entire season that will be able to step up with Brian Rust being out of the lineup.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, I feel like if they just give Harkins a chance on that top line, I feel like they're gonna figure it out.
Definitely the guy that I think deserves a crack. Yeah. I mean, with the way that he's produced this year, he's definitely bound to score one goal playing with Sidney Crosby, I think.
Yeah, but so would you and I feel like all we have to do is stand there and it bounce off our stick.
No, but all jokes aside, yeah,
it's pain.
I agree.
It's pain.
And you know, they score 7 goals. You mentioned give up 6 in a game where like Jarry probably should have given up 2. Like Tristan Jarry has his worst game the day that they actually finally decided to give him some support. So just again, they haven't been able to click on all cylinders. It's insane to me where they're at right now, and it's going to be even harder again without Brian Rust. Man, you talked about they got Vancouver the night of recording this, go to Seattle. Like it's not going to, and then pretty soon they're going to be having these 4-point games we've been talking about due to that stretch where they're playing a lot of divisional opponents and the teams they're chasing the wild card. Tough road ahead for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And wanted to give a shout out to our guy, John Gorman. He asked us a Pens question, which we decided we're just going to turn that into the entire episode, basically, what he asked us, or a variation of what he asked us. So his actual question was, depending on how the week goes, who all would you trade keep? We'll do you one better. We're going to go through the entire Penguins roster and put them into a category on if we would trade or keep them. And it doesn't even matter what they do this week. Kind of does, because if they sweep the week or get swept this week, that might change the way that we're talking about this. But either way, this is how we want to do it. Just thought it'd be more fun to play a game like this. So I got the roster pulled up. We should go in alphabetical order, the way that they have it on here, and we will say untouchable, almost untouchable, put them on the trade block, would but can't trade, and does it really matter, which is my favorite category that we can put them into. So let's go. Noel Acciari. I'm trade block.
I would say
if you can trade him, sure. Like he's on a 3-year deal, makes more than he probably should as a fourth liner. I'd put him on the trade block. I don't think
I'd put him on the trade block too. I was debating on whether I'd put him between trade block or doesn't really matter.
Oh, really? Okay, I thought you'd say would but can't.
Well, yeah, would but can't. I guess there's not really many people that are going to look at him as a desirable asset, so I guess that would probably fit better.
Yeah. What's funny is the Penguins splits with and without him. Like what is he? The TJ Watt of the team? Like if you look at what their record with and without, you would think this is like a super impactful player for them, but the numbers say otherwise. Not even just like the surface level stuff. Like the analytics, it's not like he's like some defensive dynamo that's killing a bunch of penalties, like great in his own net. Like that hasn't been there. So I don't know what the reason is. It's just odd.
It's just very underwhelming.
Yeah. I mean, we got to bring him up because he's on the roster, but just got here. I don't think they're going to trade him immediately after trading for him. But Emil Bemstrom,
I mean, I would say almost
untouchable.
untouchable. Almost untouchable, because I guess he's not technically untouchable, but you just got him, so
Yeah.
interesting.
Hey, he scored a goal right away. So, and I think that, you look at what he did in Columbus, and Danny, a guy that came from Columbus, covering our friend Danny Shirey, talked to some people there, and they're like, yeah, I think there's something there. He's still just 24 years old. I think he'll be better than what we've gotten in the bottom six this year, even though that's not saying very much. So, yeah. I mean, Jeff Carter's the next on the list, but like,
would but can't.
Yeah.
I
Is
mean,
that why you put this category on here? I guess, yeah, would but can't.
Well, I think there's a couple players that could fit into that category. But yeah, Jeff Carter definitely number one. He's the poster child of would but can't. I mean, you can ask our friend Taylor Haas about Jeff Carter and whether he could be traded, whether he could be sent down. She's had to deal with those questions for well over a year. And the answer is the same. And it eventually just turned into GIF responses of her being frustrated. But yeah, definitely a would but can't. But also he's a free agent at the end of the year, so it's also kind of fits in the category of does it really matter, because at the end of the year he's gone anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Sidney Crosby. Does it really matter?
Does it really matter? This is a clear case of untouchable. Obviously.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That one's super easy and quick. Lars Eller is the next one.
Trade block. I think if you can get any sort of value out of him,
I think he's been good. Like, it's unfortunate that the Penguins haven't been better, because I think he's been pretty good.
Yeah, I think that if you look at, and maybe this is a wrong take, but if you look at outside of some of the odds and ends guys, whenever we had like Evan Rodriguez playing third line center, and whenever we had who's the guy that went to Minnesota, Freddie Gaudreau.
Oh
no, Freddie Gaudreau playing third line center. If you look at everybody between Bonino to Lars Eller, I don't think it's that outlandish to say that Lars Eller has been the best third line center we've had since Bonino. And that's in part because of how bad our third line centers have been since then.
Are you putting Jared McCann in there? I know that he's played more. He played more wing than center in our games here.
That's the thing.
I
feel like there was a couple tweeners that I wouldn't really count. I'm more or less looking at the guys that were playing that role full time. But yeah, I would
Lars
trade
Eller
him.
has 10 goals this year. I think that if you told me before the season, like, I think if we were given predictions, we'd say he probably is going to score 10 to 12. He already has 10. So
yeah, I think that's good. I think that his value, at least for being on the Penguins, is probably at an all-time high. So if you can, I would. So I'd put him on the trade block.
Jake Gensel.
Oh man, this is tough because this is more or less what I would do or versus what I think is going to happen. Because as it's getting closer to it, I'm getting the sense more and more that a trade could happen, even though I've talked about how much I don't want it to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm sure him getting injured doesn't help things. But I'm going to say he'll be on the trade block. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be traded, but I do think I do think Dubas is going to be taking calls.
This isn't just what I think. I would also put him on the trade block. Not 100% saying that I want him to be traded.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity for what
there's a lot of GMs that might throw you King's ransom. Not whatever that BS trade that was floating around Twitter this past week from
there wasn't even a player. That one. There was another one today where there wasn't even any players.
That was one where there was no players. There was another one where we were getting basically nobody.
Yeah, Warren Fogle, who's the same age as Jake Gensel.
Yeah, and has nowhere sniffed 40 goals before. But yeah, no, I would put Jake on the trade block and be housing as many calls as you can, because if you get the ransom that you're looking for, it's hard to say no. And as much as and this is going against pretty much every thing I have said on this podcast over the past 2 months, because I'm still fully in the opinion that if you trade Gensel, I don't think it's going to be like a soft retooling. I think it's a hard reset, and you kind of have to rebuild your team from there. And I still think that, but I think that if you're willing to go to that point, I'm taking any call I can to see what is going to be out there for his market, because he's one of the best guys to trade for right now, and that's why he's being talked about.
Yeah. Jansen Harkins. I would say this is the king of does it really matter?
King of does it really matter?
Yeah.
There's nothing that really matters whatsoever. He's a UFA after this season, so no value. You got to put him on the trade block. Does it matter?
Yeah. Evgeny Malkin.
Another one of those untouchables.
Yeah.
I feel like that's pretty clear.
There's definitely some people that would say would but can't, I think here. I'm just not one of those people. I think that it's been a disservice to him this year with what has been attached to him at the wing. And this is going to sound like it's a shot at him, but it's not. I mean, it's just sorry that you're not Sidney Crosby, but the way that his game has aged, he needs more support than Sidney Crosby does. And he has not been strapped with that. Like, he clearly cannot carry a line in the way that he has in the past. And at the beginning of the year, it looked like he was going to have some of that same magic that he had last year with Jason Zucker with Riley Smith. Then that completely went away. So, I don't know what the answer is here. We'll talk about Riley Smith in a little bit. We'll also talk about the other guy that's been playing with him, Drew O'Connor. I've liked the way that he's come on as of late, Drew O'Connor. But, these aren't guys that are like, yep, that's a top 6 player. I feel like the Penguins have done a disservice this year to Gino in terms of his line mates. And not to say that there's a ton more that they could have done with what the roster that Sullivan could have done with what the roster looked like, but the roster in general to me was a disservice. So, we've seen him play like a handful of games. Matt Nieto. I don't even know if he's going to be back. Does it really matter? I don't know.
Would but can't. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know when he's coming back or if he's coming back. Have we heard anything about him?
I don't know, but I'm just looking. He's on the books for next season, so that's why I'd say would.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's on the books.
Okay,
next
see,
season.
I thought he was only a 1-year deal. Jeez, okay,
2-year deal, $900,000. So you're not talking about a lot of money,
right?
But still, really, if you're getting to the point where you're trading Matt Nieto, you're really selling house right now. So it's between does it really matter and would but can't.
Yeah. Drew O'Connor, just mentioned him.
Almost untouchable. I feel like he's only one. He's one of the guys that you have to build around as far as a future of this franchise. And I'm not saying he's going to be a guy like Jake Gensel or even a Brian Rust in the long term, but he's one of your younger pieces that has been productive at the NHL level. And I don't think that Dubas would be quick to want to get rid of that, because he has the responsibility of not only rostering a competitive hockey team, but he's got the responsibility of trying to be competitive in the long run and in the future and rebuilding this team. And I don't think that it would be smart on his case to be getting rid of one of the pieces that could be on future competitive teams right away, because he is so young still.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but his deal is also for next season, right? Because
yes, it is.
I thought that was a really smart decision by them to get more than just 1 year under contract with him when they had to negotiate last summer, because this seemed like a year that he could potentially break out a little bit. And I don't know that we're fully seeing it. 9 goals on the year. He scored in, I think, 3 straight, though. Playing in the top 6 now. So I thought it was really good by them. One of the few good moves that they made, seemingly, to get a 2-year deal with him done. But yeah, he's in that tweener category for me, where it's I don't know where to put him, but based off what my options are, I guess it is almost untouchable. If there was just one on here that was on the roster still or something, that's where I would put him. But yeah, he's almost untouchable.
I mean, I guess that could fit into doesn't really matter. They're just on the roster because they're on the books next year.
Yeah, but I want him to be though too. I don't. Yeah.
But
Matthew
it doesn't matter.
Phillips.
That's the thing.
That might be. It doesn't really matter. I
doesn't
mean,
really matter.
we're not going to see a ton of him. Clearly, it's funny because like he was playing in the top 6 and then got scratched. Like, kind of doing the same thing with Jesse Puljujarvi. These are guys that are, but at least one of those guys is going to draw back in now with Rust out. Who's it going to be? One of those guys you hope can step up. Next one actually is Jesse Puljujarvi.
Yeah.
I was hopeful here, but don't even know what to say at this point.
I'd still say it doesn't really matter. I think both of those guys fit into that category. And I will say with Matthew Phillips, he was a waiver claim, so you literally have like no stake in his progression. So that one really doesn't matter. And Puljujarvi was a PTO, like a tryout contract. And so I don't think that there's anything you don't really have any stake in the game with either of those players. I don't think that they have been a productive level. I don't think you're gonna be like looking to trade them because you're not going to be able to. So it just doesn't really matter for those guys.
Valtteri Puustinen.
This is one that
it's a weird one too. I think because of what we have available to us, almost untouchable. I think that he's another one that like you kind of need to hit, a homegrown prospect finally that you hope can develop into an NHL regular. I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, based off the categories we have, it's either almost untouchable or it doesn't really matter. Like, and I would say I lean more towards the almost untouchable just because to me, like, he's got to carve out a role as an NHL regular. And that does matter.
Yeah, no, I get that. I would for the categories we have, I would say almost untouchable for similar reasons as to what I was saying with Drew O'Connor. I think Drew O'Connor is more untouchable than Valtteri Puustinen, but he's another one of the younger guys. He's only 24 years old that you're going to want to keep around on your roster because if you're trying to rebuild a roster, if you're getting to this point where we're trading these kinds of players and there's going to be nothing left to really ice a team still if you keep trading those guys. So that based off our categories, he'd fit into almost untouchable. Obviously, he's not at the same caliber of someone you'd think is almost untouchable, but I feel like for context, that's why he's in that category.
Rickard Rakell.
Trade block. If you can get somebody to take the contract, I think you should. Because Rickard Rakell...
The contract itself almost makes it go into wood, but can't. But, like, you can if you can find the team. So
there's stupid GMs born every day. I know there's only 32 of them in the NHL, but there's stupid people that could be a GM born every day. I think that Rickard Rakell is somebody that was excited about the Penguins trading for. Someone I was excited about them signing, even though I didn't love the contract at the time. But to see the step back that he's had since that contract has been signed, I think that if you can get out of that contract, you should. I still think that Rickard Rakell has some NHL hockey left in him. I still think that he can be a quality player, but I don't know that that's necessarily going to be in Pittsburgh. I don't think that the mesh between him and Malkin has never really been there that much, and the lack of commitment for Sullivan to continue to play him with Crosby where he's been
he's going to have to.
He's going to have to. But Rakell's been best with Crosby, and whenever everybody is fully healthy on the roster, the lack of commitment to keep Rakell with Crosby, I just think that he could be better suited elsewhere, especially when you look at the contract that he does have. Ron Hextall, go to hell. I think that if you can get a team to trade him, you do it.
I agree. Brian Rust.
So this one is, I think, firmly in the wood, but can't.
Okay.
For me, and just because the contract itself, that's part of the reason we're looking at these freaking Hextall contracts, and you're not going to be able to get out of them. I don't think he would lift his no movement clause. I think he'd want to stay in Pittsburgh. And while he's having a solid year, he's having a pretty good year. How long is that going to last? And also, we also have to throw in, like, we're kind of stuck in the middle right now of, like, we don't know whether the Penguins should be buyers or should be sellers. So in my head, I'm also looking at this, answering this as if they're leaning towards the selling category. So that's why I'm saying would but can't, because if you're getting to the point, basically, I'll throw an asterisk on it. This is if we're looking to trade Jake Gensel and that's the bar, where do I categorize everybody else? And so if I'm looking to trade Jake Gensel, I'm looking to trade Brian Rust as well for the value that he has. But I don't think that you'd be able to, because I don't think he's going to waive his no movement clause.
Yeah, I mean, if he would be willing to, I would have him on the trade block. So yeah, I guess I'm in that same boat. Man, how did he get is it a full no movement? It's a no movement clause.
It's a full no movement clause for the first 3 years.
Yeah. Which this is the second year of.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, man, I don't know. Like, I love Brian Rust. How in the world,
friend of the show,
is he? How in the world was he a player that got a no movement clause for 3 years?
And on a 6-year contract.
Yeah.
At 30 years old.
Yeah. I don't. What do we do?
I don't get it. Like I said, Ron Hextall was on crack when he was signing these deals. Because there's no way that he looked at all these 6-year contracts he was handing out.
And then he left.
That was normal.
Ron Hextall left a little bit of that crack for Kyle Dubas when he first got
signed
here
Ryan
for that free agency. Yeah.
He just left a little bit on the table, along with everybody's phones that were gathered in the middle of the table.
If you know, you know. Good inside joke. And then the last forward is Riley Smith.
Trade block.
Yeah. If there was a category that said like half the trade, I would almost have him there. Like and I feel like Vegas, right? Like going back to Vegas just makes so much sense for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't think Stone and Eichel on IR, like.
Yeah, and you talked about it when you were talking about Malkin, the chemistry that they were hoping would be there and looked like it could have been there in the beginning of the season. It didn't sustain. And
not even on the same line anymore.
Yeah, it hasn't really worked out. So
is Riley Smith a guy that's going to move up to the top line?
Good. Might as well just try everybody out up there.
Yeah,
they're doing it.
Curious. We should. I mean, it's funny because like people are going to be like, "What are they talking about?" It's already happened because we're recording the same day that the Penguins play against the Canucks in like 50 minutes, so we'll know what their plan is, at least for one game following this. Okay, so let's get into that. And I should have said that was just forward. So I said it was alphabetical. It was, but that was just the forward group that we went through so far. Ryan Graves. Would but can't.
Would but can't. And I'll just throw this on there. If you can find a GM dumb enough to take it, even if you have to give up a piece to get rid of the contract, I would do it. But really? I don't think you're going to be able to.
How significant of a piece?
I'd give up a second round pick for somebody to take that contract. I also would trade. Which we don't have any prospects to trade. Never mind. I would attach like a second round pick to it.
I could get on board with the second round pick too. I was just say, what about like, we know there's teams. It's been put out there that teams are looking for goaltending help and interested in both the Penguins goalies. What if somebody wanted Nedeljkovic, but like instead of getting anything else back, they just also took Ryan Graves' contract?
So we gave it to him for free, or we gave it to him for like a 7th.
Yeah, I mean whatever it had to be, a conditional 7th in like 2026 or something. Like, doesn't even matter.
I mean, Nedeljkovic is only on the roster for 1 year, so
yeah, I don't think a team would do that. By the way,
I don't think a team would do that either. But he's only on the roster for 1 year, so I'd do it. But yeah, there's no way.
You know what? If they are
contract,
if they are going to trade Jake Gensel, make that team take Ryan Graves too.
Would you sacrifice a potential return on a Jake Gensel trade if it meant you got rid of the Ryan Graves contract?
Yeah. Especially in full.
Imagine if Ryan Graves' mom heard this conversation.
I hope she does. If anybody knows Ryan Graves' mom, send her this episode.
It's nothing against him personally. The contract just sucks.
Yeah. So yeah, we're in the same spot. POJ.
Trade block. I think that he's still young enough where you could get a okay return as a
Ozoma, that
defenseman.
doesn't really matter, but you're right. They're probably we heard some trade chatter last year, so
yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like, he's only 24 years old still, so he's still young enough where I think that you could at least get a decent pick for him, like a third round pick for him, second round pick for him. I think that there's something there that you could get value out of. It didn't really pan out in Pittsburgh that much, at least not what we hoped for whenever we traded Phil Kessel for him. So I'd put him on the trade block.
Erik Karlsson.
I feel like I can't put him in the untouchable, but I have to put him in the almost untouchable. And I feel like that might sound dumb because they just made the trade for him, but I don't view him as almost untouchable, or I don't view him as just completely untouchable. But I think he's almost untouchable because I do think that he's been super underrated, which is crazy to say that Erik Karlsson's been underrated. I don't think that Penguin fans
he's having like the second best defensive year of his career.
That's the thing. I don't think Penguin fans have appreciated the way he's played this season just because he's not scoring 100 points this season.
Which we said was going to happen.
We said that was going to happen. But I feel like that he's been underappreciated, and because of his contract, I think you could even argue that it's like if you wanted to put it in like the would but can't. If I was making a new category, I'd probably say like I don't want to, but you also can't because of his $10.5 million contract.
Yeah, I mean, because of him making that much, even though he's been good, I feel like with it, where the team is at, you could almost put it like say on the trade. Like you could put him in any category and make the case for it. I think.
Yeah.
Other than does it really matter? Obviously, it matters with Erik Karlsson, but like the other four, I can make a case for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris Letang.
Untouchable. Hey, like, there's three untouchables, and you already know who they are.
Yeah, and I'm assuming for you that goes deeper than just the play on the ice.
100%. And maybe wrongfully so, but I feel like those three guys have deserved the respect of the franchise itself, not just the team, not just the GM, the coaches, the entire franchise. I feel like they've demanded and deserved the respect of the entire franchise to basically allow their final years as hockey players in the National Hockey League to play out the way they want it to, not determined by somebody in a front office.
Yeah, I agree. John Ludwig. I'm in. Does it really matter for that?
Yeah, doesn't really matter. I mean, if you said that name to somebody, a random fan, no idea who it is, probably thought it was like related to like Mozart, some sort of like artist from that type of era. So I don't know.
It's crazy that he was born in the year 2000. Like that is disturbing to me that I'm 5 years older than this guy. But Marcus Pettersson. This one hurts.
I'd put him personally in almost untouchable. And the reason I'm leaving the door cracked is because if you take away Jake Gensel, Marcus Pettersson is the one that I think you could get the biggest return on if you traded him.
Yeah. Well, that's why I love him, but like if we're going to have other players that we put on the trade block, I'm putting them on the trade block and seeing what the return is. Again, this doesn't mean putting them in this category is we want to trade this guy. It is if we're putting him on there, we're curious as to what the return would be. And for Marcus Pettersson, I'm curious what the return would be.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could argue that even depending on the right team, you might even get a better return than what Gensel would bring. Because Gensel, you got to give a new contract to.
Yeah, I just feel like, I don't know. Pettersson, I still feel like lead wide, though, is like just so underappreciated. Actually, even his own fan base is underappreciated, but really,
the NFL GMs realize that he's underappreciated. Or can they see the value?
I mean, not that I am talking to NHL GMs every day, but like I personally don't feel like there is that level of appreciation. I don't know. Chad Ruedel.
Trade block. If you can get anything for him, do
Sure.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly, every team needs guys like that. Maybe they could get not something significant, but like, a like a mid to late round pick. I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure that there's guys like that traded every single trade deadline. So that actually is an interesting one to watch, like a random trade deadline. Like when we go like a Mark Streit or something, like a seventh defenseman that gets moved.
Chad Ruedel was on the team the year before we started this podcast.
Yes.
When we started this podcast, I did not think Chad Ruedel would still be here today.
Credit to him. Yeah. That's pretty impressive now that you put it like that. The fact he's carved out that long of a career for himself. Gotta tip the cap. And then the goalies. We'll just do them together. Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic.
So Nedeljkovic is firmly on the trade block for me. And so is Tristan Jarry. I
have the same answer for both of them, and it is trade block. So when you did that, I was like, I wonder where he's going with Jarry.
Yeah, no, I felt like had to give it a little suspense,
Yeah.
I think that both goalies can be traded. Nedeljkovic would definitely be the easier sell because he only has the 1 year on his contract. You'd have to convince somebody to take the contract for Jarry, but Jarry is having a career year, best year of his career. And I think that if the team is willing to give up something, obviously you're kind of strapped the upcoming offseason if you get rid of Jarry because you don't know who's going to be your future goaltender. But if you can get something good in return that makes it worth it, I think you entertain that idea, especially because this past offseason, despite the play that we've seen from Jarry, everybody was questioning the contract of why they got it. And we understood that like they were kind of strapped on options of what they could do for a starting goaltender this season. So you kind of have to do what you have to do sometimes. But I would look at what you can see for both of these guys. And Jarry is just another one of those guys. And there's so many of them on this team that's like, would we get rid of them because of their contract? Yeah, but we probably can't.
Yeah, I agree. If the categories were more like the likelihood of them being traded, like incredibly likely, like almost a guarantee for Alex Nedeljkovic for me, honestly, because I just think the drop off from him to Hellberg behind Jarry isn't significant enough for them to not take whatever they can get back in the trade for the rest of this year. Like I just think that's like a no-brainer to do. With Jarry, again, how many people would bite on that contract? I'm not sure, but like because of the year that he's having, I would dangle it out there. So that's why I'm putting it on the trade block to see what you can get. All credit to him. He has been fantastic this year. I can't imagine where the team would be at without him. But yeah, I'm just worried about how it's going to age more than anything. Like I don't care how it's looked in 2024. That's great. How's it going to look in 2026, 2027, as we get deeper into this thing?
That's why you got to look at moving it now because he's at an all-time high. Leads the league in shutouts, by the way, at 6.
Yeah, there you go. I'm just all credit to him. And you almost feel like with where they're at now, it'd be a good thing. Maybe he'll look at it as being a good thing.
And you got to assume if you're trading Jarry and someone's trading that for that contract, I would think you would assume it's probably to a contender if they're looking to take on a goalie like that.
What contender? Yeah, what contender is even like looking for that big of a solution though? Like where they're willing to commit that much in terms of the years. Like that's why I could see. That's why I see Nedeljkovic as like a guarantee because you're talking about a guy that's provided, starter quality play more often than not on a backup contract that expires at the end of the year. That you're probably not giving up a ton for. With Jarry, that's not the case. You're committing to him.
I mean, does Carolina have a long-term goalie?
No, but they don't care about it.
That's true.
They don't pay. I mean, they don't pay their goalies. Like they just
I wish I could relate. I'm like looking at some of these teams.
Oh, they wouldn't trade the division, but the Flyers. Because of the Carter Hart situation.
Yeah.
You know, who knows what's going to happen long term there. That Samuel Ersson has been very good for them, though. I just don't know if they believe that that's going to last or what. But I don't know. Beyond that, man.
I mean,
who's the number one in Detroit? Alex Lyon is played the most games for them. What the heck?
Does Edmonton really like Stuart Skinner?
Yeah, I don't know. He was a all-star last year and then didn't play the same way in the second half of last year. This year, 2.7 goals against, 903 save percentage.
He's not that much younger than Jari.
No.
I mean, Jari is what? How old is this dude?
I guess it doesn't have to be a team that's like
28.
That's definitely. It doesn't have to be a team that's definitely making the playoffs this year, though. Either.
No,
because you have them for like Buffalo. They got to get a lot of young goalies though, so maybe one of them could come back in the deal.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a suitor out
not
there.
Going to happen.
Yeah, there could be a suitor though, so you got to leave those options open. But we'll see. Yeah. I mean, there's games to be played between now and March 8th, and those games are probably going to determine the way that the Penguins are going to go this trade deadline. Although I don't see this as the Penguins being buyers or sellers. I see them being either they're just staying pat or they're sellers. I don't think that they're going to be looking to buy really anything.
Sure. Yeah. I agree with that. So we'll leave it at that. This has been the Around the 412 Penguins show. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. That's right here. Leave us a comment down below. Any questions for future episodes, what you thought about what we talked about. Let us know. I mean, I'm not going to ask you guys to go through and literally every player like we did do that, but maybe give us some guys that you think could definitely be traded and vice versa. Definitely stay in. Leave us a 5-star review if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. And check out Everything Custom Designs. The link is in the description of the show, wherever you're watching or listening. Custom shirts, hoodies, all that good stuff. St. Patrick's Day, Easter, did some custom stuff. She's got our Around the 412 logo as well that she's made for me. So you can definitely get that from our friend Haley Wagner. It's her small business. Everything Custom Designs in the description. For Smitty, for Tyler, this has been the Around the 412 Penguin Show. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.